Hello viewers, Chris and Brook from Vee Two Australia. We're here to talk about oil pumps. Now oil pumps really, the oil is the lifeblood of your engine. The oil pump's got to be your heart. The heart of the engine, True. Isn't it? And if your oil pump's not going well, then your
not a good look.
Your engine won't last. So Brook's going to go through oil pumps for the round case and square case engines, the ones that we make, the difference between those and the factory ones and so on. So without further ado, you're going to get into it.
A bit of indecisiveness about these oil pumps with a lot of people, and that they shouldn't be, because it's a pretty simple process, and a particular oil pump is designed for a particular job in most engines, obviously, and these engines run a roller big end. We do convert them to a plain big end. Lots of people do. On our race bikes we do, and that's another whole episode. The oil pumps that come standard in a round case or a square case bevel, the pump itself is actually reasonably okay. It's not. It does the job, and it doesn't have oiling problems. It doesn't have oiling problems because of the pump itself is not good enough. The pump degrades very, very quickly in a normal situation because of the way the oil is filtered, and we've showed that with our screens, with our drain screens and our pickups. We fixed that problem, so you don't. Basically, the way they came from the factory was that the oil pump picks up anything and everything directly off the crankcase floor, and that's the failure of the system, and it's why the pumps give more trouble than anything. Now, we do manufacture pumps for both square case, round case, and we do a high volume pump and high pressure pump, but that is, and I'll touch on that briefly and show you a bit about that. There's been some other pumps made around the world that are they are sold as high volume pumps. I don't know whether the pressure would be high, but I guess that it is. And in actual fact, high volume, high pressure, or mainly high pressure, is not a good thing on a roller big end. People say, oh, I've got a high volume, high pressure pump in my bevel and it's still running a roller big end. That is not the ideal situation. The extra volume of oil, and the pressure, extra pressure, will in fact make the rollers skid on the big end, and a roller big end is designed to run at sort of 8 pound oil pressure and enough oil to lubricate it. That's all it needs. They don't like being swamped and the rollers skidding, and the pressure in there causes that to happen. And it's a retro step by doing that on a roller big end. It's not a retro step doing it on a plain bearing, but it certainly is on a roller bearing. Roller bearings were designed for motorcycles a long time ago, and they didn't have much oil. The oil pumps were very low volume, very low pressure, and the things went forever. Leverters are a classic case. A Leverter triple runs a roller big end, and they don't even have any direct feed to the big end. They rely on splash, and they rely on a slinger to sling a bit of oil mist in there, and they do literally hundreds of thousands of kilometres. Whereas these things, especially when you start putting extra oil and stuff through them, they don't do the mileage. They fail. So getting back to the problem with the oil pumps themselves, I don't know if you can get in here and have a look, Chris. These are oil pumps that have come out of engines that we've rebuilt, and you'll see in here the scoring around here, which is that is all from bits of anything, bits of gear, bits of all sorts of stuff getting picked up on the oil pump and scouring. See, that's a square case, that's the same. I mean, all of these pumps, you know, like when I take, look at that one in particular, you see the huge line in it? That's from some chunk of metal being picked up in the oil pump and dragged around, and then that causes this sort of thing on the gear. Like the great big chunk has gone through that oil pump, and you know, destroys the body, destroys the gear. So that is a problem, obviously. And when they're manufactured, they probably weren't made to the best tolerances, but like I said, they don't need mega oil anyway. Our pumps, which that's one of our pumps, they're machined in billet, and the clearances are probably better than they are to spec. So the clearance on an oil pump is the distance between this here, where the gear, the oil pump gear, meets the body. So if it's got a big gap around here, it'll bypass oil, and its performance won't work in the way that it's been designed. As long as that's in good condition, and we make sure that the tolerance between here and here is correct on all pumps. The factory's pump is actually cast. You can see it's cast. I mean, it's like I said, it does the job, but these days they're all getting a bit worn out. The material's not that brilliant, and you know, these are made out of 6061 and T6, which is quite a good material. And as long as the oil going into them is filtered properly, it'll last forever. And this drain screen thing and this pickup filter is the secret of making them work. The round case and the square case and the round case are basically the same setup. The round case has got a bit of an issue with, they have this plate on here, they have a gasket on here. This is a Vee Two pump because it's made out of billet, and that gasket has to seal on this little edge here, which is the pressure relief valve, and you've got to be very careful when you assemble that the oil can't escape out of this gap in here. Which there's lots of ways to check it and make sure that it's right, but that I'll go through that in an engine assembly video. But basically, these pumps are made to a better tolerance than the originals, and if you install one of these pumps and the filtration system, it'll last the life of the engine and you probably. So that they're not a problem. This pump here is actually, you can see by the width of the gears that it is slightly, these are wider. See how that's wider? That's a wider gear, so it'll actually pump more. This is a high volume pump that is supplied. I don't know who made them or what, but there's a few around, and I think they were made in Europe. And these do pump a lot more oil because of the width of the pump. You can see that it's wider. It pumps a lot more oil and does cause the rollers to cavitate and skid in the big end. And I'm not quite sure who dreamed this up, but it was not exactly, it wasn't exactly the smartest way to make an oil pump for a bevel. So I'm not saying you should go and take this out if you've got one in there, but you definitely need to look at how much it's flowing and maybe bypass it or release it a bit, because you don't need that much oil. So we could touch on this here is a round case, and this has been converted to a plain bearing big end. And if you have a look in here, Chris, this is actually welded up here in this area, and it's been flattened off, versus if you look at this one, it's got This has got the step, and this has got this little. It's got a seal oil on that step on the two heights here, which is on a high pressure pump almost impossible. So we change it to this, and we put O-rings in the pump body. We put O-rings in the pump body, which here. So those O-rings go in there. They seal on here, and this is a much wider. It's wider than this other pump made in Europe, and it's a lot wider than a standard pump. And this pump runs actually the same gears as the belt drive engine, so same as a 1098 if you like, in any of those engines, Panthers, and it will run 60-pound pressure and high volume, but it is a completely different situation because it has plain BN shells and different pressure relief valve and a lot of changes inside the engine with the galleries and everything. So it's a totally different ball game to the standard roller bearing, which for the average guy, you guys riding your bevels all day, every day, whenever, is absolutely totally adequate as long as the oil is filtered and the pump is in good condition. And if it hasn't had a good drain screen in it, I can tell you the pump will be sad, very sad, and probably needs to be looked at. So there you go. That's as much as I can tell you, Chris.
So I hope you got something out of that. Now, you can change your oil pump. You don't have to pull the engine apart.
No.
You basically pull your alternator cover off on either of these engines, and away you go. And they can be a little bit finicky with your relief ball and spring and
but I mean,
if
if you got half a clue about, or you can get a mechanic to check it, but it's certainly not rocket science to do it. And like I said, the factory oil pump is probably started off life okay, but it certainly at some point, if you're going to keep your bevel and kind of going to keep riding it, it certainly wouldn't hurt to pull the oil pump out and have a look at it. Maybe if you're fitting one of our screens and pickups, maybe that'd be the time to do it. Just check and see if the oil pump's okay. There's not uncommon for the oil pump to have these grooves and chunks out of the gears and stuff because they literally ingest all that stuff through the filter because of the lack of filtration through the drain screen and the drain screen pickup, and that is really what causes them to fail. Not that they were no good to start with; they were average, but they keep going. But we make the pumps. We have done a lot of research on them, and it's certainly not hard to check or have them checked by someone, and could make the engine last a lot longer.
Well, those original drain screens, they're like.
Well, the screen itself is not so good, but it's the mechanism that they designed to
and it gets all
seal.
warped with heat.
Yeah, it gets warped,
and it's like throwing a banana down a hall.
Yep,
with a little seal at the end. So there's a massive gap for any crap in the sump to bypass the screen altogether.
Round this corner, round here, where this fits in here, this is where they fail because this little piece shrinks because it's plastic, shrinks. This is rubber and it expands. And they've got nothing sealing in there. And although this does enter into the plastic thing, the pump won't suck anything through the filter gauze if it's easier to suck it around the end where there's just a huge big gap. And that's what it does. It literally sucks all its oil through here, through this joint because it's not sealing, and nothing goes through the screen anyway. So it really is a problem.
Cool. Okay. Well, thanks again for watching. If you like what we ramble on about,
there's
please.
only one rambler.
Is that me? Is it?
Oh, I didn't say it was.
You can press like and subscribe, and we'll keep the videos coming out. These sorts of videos, Project 860, all that sort of carry on. So, thanks again. See you later.
Thank you.